Hello, my friend Stephanie here, and I'm back with more movie chatter. And I'm going to try not to laugh through this intro, but I am here with my good friend John from PLAIDx2. And today is a very exciting day because this is our very first episode of Movies We Love. And I'm so excited, John, that you agreed to do this maiden voyage and the whole whatever it turns into with me. It's a project we've been talking about for a little bit, and I'm so happy to have you as my co-host and my partner in crime in this 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 thing we're trying out here. So if you want to say hi to everybody and tell them where they can find you, that would be great.
All right. Well, my name is John, and I'm on the channel PLAIDx2. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok there. I just started TikTok because that is the demographic for people, middle-aged men. So with movie channels. So yeah, so I do that. And thanks, Stephanie, for inviting me to be part of this. You were the first episode of the 5 on my channel. And so, yeah, so I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I'm not letting you go. You're stuck here. That's it. You're like,
Well,
I'm gonna have your head in every video, like floating, and it's gonna be like tap to John. It's gonna be a counter. It's gonna be everything. So
okay,
it'll
good.
be fun. Yeah, the John counter will be one.
Well,
And
I
do
thought
you,
the other day, you and I talk literally all the time, and I
right,
was like, "Oh, we're doing a video this week," and I was thinking because I feel as though we've done a ton of videos together, but this is
right.
only the third time we've ever done a video together.
Yeah, we just do more chatting, really.
Yeah, we do.
We're very busy. We're very busy chatting about ladies with mustaches and
There you go.
beard trimmers and things like that. So would you like to show everybody 'cause my mic muted? See my mic muted already with the free mic. So I'm gonna fix that. Okay, so since this is our very first episode of Movies We Love, would you like to introduce the movie that we are going to be discussing today? Just show us.
Yes. So 2013, and it is Nebraska,
Mhm.
and I'm very excited about this. I love this movie, and we've chatted about it a little bit,
Yep.
and both were fans of it. I think you told me, I think when I told you I found it, you were like, "You've got to watch this movie." And I
Yes.
did. I sat down with my wife and we watched it, absolutely loved it, and I've watched it multiple times since and recommended it to so many people.
It's so funny because it was a chain reaction because I had the movie. I saw Tony from Basement Blues show it, and
Okay.
he held it up. I watched it, then within a day or 2, you told me you had it. You watched it and loved it, and then I ended up telling Nathan, and Nathan came back to me, Nathan Jones, our friend Nathan Jones. So we all kinda watched it at once, and everyone loved it. So it was really cool.
So good.
But, yeah, and, we're gonna give a brief overview, and, just so you guys know, John and I are on the same page. We don't like to talk spoilers, but you never know if we're doing a long form discussion, we might tell you something that you don't wanna know. We're gonna try to avoid that, but I will give you a little heads up when we're actually gonna get into the discussion, and we won't be offended if you click away and then come back after you watch the movie. The video will be up. Let us know what you thought. So Nebraska, long and short of it, this is a movie. It's a family. I would call it a dramedy,
Yeah.
if you will. It's a story about a family. Bruce Dern is the patriarch of the family, and he believes he has won $1 million. He gets one of those like magazine. What would you call it? Like clearinghouse
Yeah.
giveaway type thing. Scams in the mail, and he is sure that he's won $1 million, and is determined to get from Billings to Lincoln, Nebraska on foot. And it ends up turning into a father-son road trip because his younger son, David, agrees to drive him when no one else in the family will take him. And we follow them on their journey of kind of self-discovery, discovering their relationship, and what they find out along the way. And it's a lot of laughs, a lot of heartfelt moments, and really just a really, really cool movie. And if you want to add anything else to that, John, feel free before we get going.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a drama comedy type film. And I
Hmm.
wasn't sure going in because of, we'll talk about the cast, but when I was looking
Right,
at how the cast was built,
right.
I wasn't sure going into it and was pleasantly surprised with how it came out.
Yeah,
So yeah, it
yeah.
is.
Same here.
Yeah,
Same here.
it's about like your family, your relationships in the family, the history of your family, and the day to day, and navigating all of those things.
Yeah,
It's
and the
good.
things that you don't know.
Absolutely.
Definitely the things that you don't know.
Absolutely.
So I guess this would be the point in our introduction when we would put in the spoiler alert that now is when we're going to actually get into our discussion about our feelings and our experience with the movie. Neither one of us know what the other one has in their notes, so this is going to be a surprise for both of us. But if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to know any more about it, click away, go watch it, and come back and let us know what you thought. So we are going to get right into it now. And I guess our first thing would be, like you said, the casting. What'd you think of the casting?
I thought it was outstanding. I only Will Forte. So when I saw the cover, I'm a big Saturday Night Live fan, and I love Will Forte on Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
And so when I saw him and just the tone of like of looking at, I'm just looking at the artwork of it, and then
Mm-hmm.
reading the back, I was like, this seems way more serious than Will Forte is supposed to be in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought he was incredibly impressive in this role.
Yep.
And what I loved about it, well, while there is humor in it, I don't even think he was the funniest person in the movie.
No.
And he didn't lean on his comedy chops.
Right.
He does definitely has funny moments, and his ability to say ridiculous things or funny things while keeping a straight face was perfect. But on the Will Forte thing, I thought he was an excellent choice. Yeah, I liked him a lot.
Yeah, I thought he really showed an amazing range.
He did.
And I don't know much of him. I don't watch Saturday Night Live now. I haven't seen
Hmm.
it in a very long time, but I've seen him in other things and I couldn't remember what, but it was always more towards the comedy end. And I was very impressed with the range of him just as an actor.
Yeah.
And I thought Bruce Dern plays the father,
Hmm.
Woody, and I thought he was perfectly cast as
He
the type curmudgeon type, you know?
yeah, because he's kind of like he's so he can be very distant, and he is very distant
Yes.
from everything, everyone. And you're right, he's a curmudgeon, and there's almost like you can see the look on his face. He's disconnected from everything almost, and he killed it. He was
He
amazing in
did.
that role. And I because yeah, he doesn't. There's not a lot of range in that character in the film. Like
No,
he's
pretty
kind of like
stoic.
very, and
Yeah.
I think actually that would be a difficult thing to do, to not have this big playground to play in as an actor.
Yeah.
And he did phenomenal, I thought. I think
Yeah.
he was great.
And they touch on, well, they say it without saying it, that he is in early stage dementia.
Hmm.
But as the movie goes on, and this is just an observation, not a spoiler. You kind of start to wonder, like, how much of that distance type stoic thing is intentional because he knows people already think this of him, and he's really a lot more in tune than he's letting on.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of it is just to keep everybody where they are
Hmm.
because everybody gives him such a hard time about everything. Like, it just seems like
Yeah.
everything the guy does is wrong, you know?
Every
Everything he does is everybody's got a problem with it. And
yeah, he kind of wants to be left alone.
right, so I'm wondering, like, is the dementia thing, like, obviously there was a things missing. There were some
Yeah.
parts that were missing, but you wonder how much of it he's like, well, if they're going to say I have dementia, I'm going to run with it,
Right.
because he did that, that stoic distancing thing. But I thought he was brilliant. I thought he was great.
I do too. What'd you think of
And
June Squibb, his wife?
she was fantastic. She was
Absolutely.
perfectly cast.
Hmm.
And I have a lot more to say about her and her character,
Yeah.
um, because she triggered me
Oh,
in a
really?
big way.
Okay.
Yeah, she triggered me in a big way, and it wasn't necessarily a bad way. It was just she triggered me. I was like, "Wow, that's
Okay.
somebody." And I thought she was great. I don't know what else I've seen her in. I don't know if
Me
I've
either.
seen her. She was very unfamiliar to me. But when I looked at her filmography, she's been in a lot of things. I don't know if I know she's been, it looks like a voice actor in a lot of things,
Okay.
but I didn't, she wasn't familiar at all to me, her face or her
No.
voice. Like, she kind of just turned up and I was like, she's gold in there. She is so mean to Bruce Dern. I would turn myself off too.
Yeah. Well, on the cover, when I saw it, I was like, I only knew three of them: Bob Odenkirk, Bruce Dern, and Will Forte. And her, I said, "Oh, she looks so cute and so sweet." and she has a filthy mouth. She is just rips people apart,
Yep.
and she was my favorite character, like
Yep,
the
me
most
too.
entertaining character for
Yep.
sure.
Yep. She doesn't have a kind word to say about anyone ever, ever. We can't even get into what she says.
All I'll
Abo
say is this is the cemetery scene. I was on the floor laughing, tears down my face. I was like, "You're so ridiculous,
Yep.
so funny."
Yep. That was her moment. She stole it with that moment. I was
I think
dying.
she stole every scene she was in,
Oh,
and
yeah, without a doubt.
she's like I thought Will Forte. Oh, he's in the movie because he'll be the funny guy,
Yeah.
and he's not. She's the comedic relief throughout the film.
Yeah. And I have to say I was kinda disappointed that they didn't make more use of Bob Odenkirk.
He was really a background character,
He was.
and I don't know if it's like to create that family distance, if that's why they didn't use him,
Mhm.
because he was kind of like absent. He still cared, but he was absent,
Right.
like physically and emotionally. And it was Will Forte that was more invested in his parents than Bob. So I agree with you though, because he's such a phenomenal actor with unbelievable range. It was strange not seeing him have a more prominent role.
Right. And now the director, Alexander Payne, have you seen any of his other movies?
Not that I'm aware of, but
He did The Descendants with, George Clooney, which is
okay.
another now that's a straight up family drama, very, very good. Very, very good.
I don't think I've seen that.
And then the other one he did, which is, it's kinda meh received. I enjoy it, but it's kind of it's a very, very dry sense of humor, is Sideways.
I don't think I've seen that either.
It doesn't give it I think it gets, like, in the 5s,
Oh,
but
really?
I think it's better than a 5.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched it a few times. It's not great, but it's not Nebraska and it's not Descendants, but
Okay.
it's okay. It's decent. But those are the 2 standout movies, from the other thing I think he did, which people just did not like, I believe he did yes, he did Downsizing, and people did not
Oh,
with
okay.
Matt Damon.
Yeah.
People didn't like Downsizing. I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
I think it was marketed wrong. It was marketed as a straight up comedy, and it's not. It's a drama.
Okay. I've avoided it because I only heard negative things about it.
Yeah, you can't go into it thinking that it's a comedy. It yeah, because you think like Kristen Wiig
Yeah.
and no, it's not a comedy at all. If you go into it thinking drama, it's a much better experience.
Okay.
But I don't watch really trailers until after, so I didn't, but that's a little base of his filmography, the director's filmography for anybody who's trying to kind of put pieces together. So
I
the
thought
next oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just saying I thought this was directed just beautifully, the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
Everything was woven together perfectly
Oh,
in
yeah.
this film. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, the pacing was great. I think
Mhm.
the movie's like I think it runs an hour 54. You're never bored, you're never looking at your phone, you're never looking at the time left
No.
in the movie, and it just moves along at a pace that's comfortable.
Mhm.
You don't feel overwhelmed, and you don't feel bored.
Yeah.
And I've seen people say that it's very slow. I've read things where people are like, "Oh, it's slow." I didn't find it slow, I found it more we're getting to know you.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what I look for in these kind of movies. I wanna know who we're dealing with.
Yeah, and I think in a drama, you have to be really tasteful to not cross the comedy line to when to put it.
Mhm.
So I thought the mom was amazing. Will Forte does a little bit, and the two cousins, I laughed very hard. Like when they kept asking how long it took them to
How
get
long
there,
did it take you?
I was rolling with that because that joke just kept going. It was so funny.
Yeah.
So I thought he did a great job to insert those things to when it and you're right, like when they're sitting when all of that family is in the house, when they all
Oh,
come, it could not possibly be slower, but
yeah.
that's to establish the relationships in the room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yep.
if you're just if you're looking for just something high paced for the sake of it being high paced, it'll be boring. But if you look at that pacing and then recognize what it's representing with all the relationships in that family, it was brilliant.
Yeah. It was perfect.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned you put in your on your list because we combined our lists, the score and the cinematography, which in my mind kind of go together.
Yeah,
How did you feel
absolutely.
about that?
You're exactly right. It was those two things. Like when a movie can have a score and when it can be shot in a way that the tone, the characters, everything feels like it's lockstep. Like everything was, yeah, it just it felt like it looked and it sounded
Yes,
like it looked.
yes,
And all of it, yeah. The music sounded like the terrain you were looking at.
yeah,
It was just so well
yep,
done.
yeah. Because it takes place in the Midwest. And have you been to the Midwest?
Yes, I've been out that way one time,
Okay.
and yeah, one time.
I rode a Harley through a lot of the
No way.
sections that they were in. Yeah, and when they were showing, because part of this is a road trip. It's a father son road trip, and part of it is about what you find out on the road trip when you
Yeah.
stop. But I know there were parts of it where I was looking at the landscape and I'm like, nailed it. And I'm listening to the music that the score is a lot of soft, like guitar music.
Mhm.
And I think there was a little, maybe were there like little horns or something? It was very soft.
Yeah.
But I noticed when they're driving, the music is more uptick and louder. And when there are scenes that are more important and maybe emotionally have emotional depth to them, if you notice the music gets much quieter.
Yes.
So you're focusing on what's happening on the screen and you're not distracted by that score. It's still
Yeah.
there. It's still putting that feeling onto the screen, but you're focusing on what's happening. But when they were driving, I was like, "This music is" I wished I had had it in my helmet when I was riding because it was perfect.
It is.
It was masterfully done,
Yeah.
and I love the cinematography. They captured everything. Even there was a s when they stop and they go into the old house, the
Yeah.
old family house, there was a shot that he did that was a picture frame. It was a window, uh, looking out onto, like, the old farm,
Mhm.
and to me, it was almost like it felt like he framed out, like, a snapshot of a life,
Hmm. Interesting.
a and it gave me chills, and I was
Yeah.
like, very rarely does someone do so many things so right that it'll get me like that,
Wow.
and he had quite a few moments, I think, just with that cinematography and that beautiful, beautiful fitting score
Yeah.
that just took me right away with them. I was with them all the way. I was in the back seat.
It's totally one of those things where if you were, like you said, driving through there now, because wherever you drive, if you're driving through Chicago, you're driving through New York City, wherever, there is a perfect kind of music you could play in that setting. And if you were driving through Nebraska, and when you're watching this film, you're like, that would be what I would want to hear. That's
Yep.
exactly what I'd want to hear.
Yeah.
So well
And
done.
and they did, with it's funny because I live in New Jersey where everything is crazy and there's a lot of traffic and, they say as soon as you hit, like, you go over the Delaware Bridge towards New Jersey, your knuckles turn white because that's how bad the driving is in New Jersey. And I remember when I had gone to South Dakota to Rapid City, which is one of the cities they get stuck in when,
Hmm.
a certain incident happens. Um, I remember coming home from Rapid City and I felt like my stomach just went into a knot when I got home because I was so relaxed and so chill when I was out in the Midwest
Yeah.
because there's not all that traffic
Yeah.
and you can see for miles because it's so
Yeah.
flat and beautiful. But yeah, I thought that was just, he did such an amazing job with all that
I agree.
and in black and white.
And in black and white, which I love.
And we love black and white. You are the classics guy.
Right.
You love your classics. I love the classics. And how do you feel about modern films in black and white? Do you think it's a bonus? Do you think it adds anything, takes away anything? Does it make a difference?
I love it. I'm a huge fan, and I think it adds because I think it forces your attention onto the story and to the actors
Yep.
because and it forces the filmmakers and actors to do their absolute best to keep you. So, like for example, Godzilla versus Kong that came
Mhm.
out this about a year or so ago. I really enjoy that film. I like it a lot, but it didn't need to have amazing acting and it didn't need to have a really well done story because the
Yep.
colors will blow your mind in that
Yep.
film. You put that on 4K and you can't take your eyes off it. It's so cool. Um, but in a film like this, a black and white film, you can't rely on that. There is no color explosions to say, I'm going to keep the audience because of this visual. It's not.
Yeah.
And so the story and the acting have to be the best
Right.
to keep you. And I think this film was one of those films that did it really, really well. That in black and white, and it just accentuates those two things, the storytelling and the acting.
Yeah.
It's front and center. And yeah, so I loved it. And I love how more films are doing it. Like this year in 2021, you have what? Come on,
Mhm.
Belfast, The Tragedy of
Mhm.
Macbeth. So you
Mhm.
have a lot of films coming out
Mhm.
on that format. And I think it's a phenomenal medium to help train you to think about the story and the acting.
Yep.
And in this world, I think in cinema, where, and I like Marvel movies, I have a handful in my collection,
Mhm.
but there's just explosions of color and just fast moving. And
Yep.
sometimes you can get distracted and not see the story. And
Yes.
so this helps you, I think, to just focus in on the story. And so for some people that may be difficult, but I think this would be a good movie to begin maybe watching black and white on, black and white
Yeah.
films.
Yeah, I agree. Because I think that, you know, color evokes emotion.
Yeah.
So you can be led astray if like for instance, you're on a gray wall, I'm sitting behind a hot red wall. They're two different it's a two different looks,
Yeah.
and if somebody wants you to feel a certain way and they can make their scene feel a certain way with color, you kind of get dragged along with that. Where with a black and white film, you have, like you said, you have to follow the story and follow the acting.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, even when it comes down to seasons, in the beginning, I don't know if you noticed, but in the beginning, when Bruce Stern is he's walking towards the camera on the highway, and you can't really see what he's wearing yet, but there's like a digital bank clock, and I think it says like 8:44, and you can tell it's daytime, but it says 28 degrees, 28 degrees Fahrenheit,
Yeah.
and that is the only way you really know that it's winter.
That's true. Yeah.
Because you don't really see that the grass is brown or dead, or you don't really see that he's bundled up or anything. You're just kind of seeing cars driving. And I just happened to notice, I'm like, oh, it's 28 degrees. Okay, it's winter.
Interesting. I
But
missed that part.
that just was more, it just solidified that whole thing. Like with black and white, it is a blank canvas for whatever they want that film to be. And it's up to, like you said, the story and the acting to take you where they want you to go.
Yeah.
They can't rely on anything else. There's no distractions, there's no big CGI, there's no explosions, it's all practical effects,
Yep.
and, I thought it was an absolutely beautiful film
Hmm.
to listen to watch, to experience. I just thought it was beautiful.
Yeah. I think I find those movies help me to. So one of the reasons I love black and white is it kind of chills me out,
Mhm,
and when you calm down, you're able to focus a little more, and you all these nuanced things that the characters do, and
mhm,
these nuanced parts. Like even in there's one scene, I think it's so powerful when they're driving in the truck,
mhm,
and I think it's near the end of the film, and the dad just turns and looks at Will Forte, and
mhm,
then looks away quick, and Will Forte looks over, knowing that his dad, and it's like he saw him, and
mhm.
but it feels like it was the first time he's
Right.
seen him
Yes.
either maybe ever or in the longest time. And
Yes.
it was this quick thing. But I find with black and white, I'm not distracted by the scenery behind him, on what they're passing by.
Yep.
Alls I see is these two guys in the cab of the truck.
Yes.
And so yeah, I think it helps me to focus.
Yeah, I agree, because there's nothing else taking you away.
No.
They're not dragging you out of anything, you're in it with them.
Yeah.
And now, we talked about emotion briefly. Um, did you have any feelings, unexpected feelings from any part of the films? What came up for you? Was it, you know, whatever, personal, anything you want to share? Anything that came up for you with the film, the story, the relationships, anything that, you felt from watching this film that maybe was expected or unexpected? Probably unexpected.
Yeah, so unexpected for me because I've watched it twice now, and the
Right.
first time I felt this, the second time I didn't because I knew,
Right.
but the first time at the end, I felt so deeply convicted about how easy I pass judgment on people.
Okay.
Because at the beginning of the movie, the mom and dad, I'm like, oh, he's this kind of a person.
Mhm.
She's this kind of a person.
Mhm.
And I very much pass judgment on them. And what you said at the beginning of our conversation is so true. You have to, when you learn a little bit more of what went on with the dad in his
Mhm.
life,
Mhm.
and then you all of a sudden way more empathy and compassion and
Mhm.
and forgiveness. Like, I forgive you being this way to
Mhm.
your family, and I forgive, not completely because you have to take ownership of your stuff,
Right.
but there was way more empathy on my, and then with the mom, I was like, okay, she's this.
Right.
And probably about 75% of the way into the film, that all changed for me.
Mhm.
Her displays of affection for her husband,
Mhm.
and her standing up for him
Mhm.
and protecting him. And I was like, oh, she gives him a hard time all the time.
Mhm.
But when push comes to shove, she loves that guy and she'll stand with him and for him. And so it really, the first time I watched through it, I was like, I'm a jerk. Because it was so easy to peg these guys as certain characters, and they
Right.
weren't. They weren't that at all. They were much more complex. And it was just a good reminder of, in life, be so careful before you just go, that's this kind of person. Even if it's a bad thing, if they're doing bad things,
Right.
because you just don't know what got them there. So
Right.
yeah, so
Right.
that was my first time watching it, was like, oh, and then second time watching it, you just dig in a little more, going, oh, okay, this is even more of what I didn't see the first time around.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so that was probably my emotional response, I guess.
Yeah. I guess my emotional response was it felt familiar.
Okay.
For me it felt very familiar. I felt almost like I could have been watching a family movie, almost of my own family,
Hmm.
and how different responsibilities fall to different people, how certain people know when to distance themselves from certain things while other people hang in there and dig their heels in no matter what, and they're going to try and fix it and take care of things, and even when they really it's not your job to fix it, you just kind of do what you do. um and for me, I don't know if it's an age thing, but there kind of comes a certain point when the everything changes, the dynamics between adult children and parents change. And all of a sudden, I don't I kind of don't know when it happened, but you're the one who has to worry about them.
Hmm.
You as the child have to worry about your parents and that they're okay and that they're getting what they need and that they're being heard regardless of what your past relationships are with them. And it's also when you for me, I start to think about like mortality and how much time we have left or how much time has gone by, and you realize maybe there are things that you want to know before time runs out,
Hmm.
and it's now or never, because if you don't find out you may never know,
Yeah.
and you either have to be okay and settle with that, or maybe you have to put yourself out there, as uncomfortable as it may be, and get those, or try and get some understanding, come to a place of understanding. Even if you don't agree, just get some kind of closure, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think that that's an age thing, because that was not something I thought about when I was 20. And I don't think, because at 20 you don't have to. Most
No.
people, most
Yeah.
people in most situations, but I was really I don't get shaken by a lot of things,
Right.
but it was like it held it up in front of me and it wouldn't let go.
Wow.
And the whole movie, I was like, wow, it was so real. It is such a real feeling movie.
Yes, it is.
And I think that is part of one of many things that just drew me in, but it held me there. Like it wouldn't let you look away.
Hmm.
And so for me, it definitely the first time, like the second time, like you said, you kind of know what you're getting into, so you dig a little deeper and you look deeper into each character.
Yeah.
But that first time, it was like somebody threw cold water at me, and I was like, "Wow, okay." And it was a lot. It was a lot to take in, but really, really good and very, like I said, real.
Yeah.
Just so real. So
It was.
that was my dose of reality with that one. But I wouldn't change it because it was like a wake up call.
Yeah.
You know.
And that's to me where I love John Wick films. I
Mm-hmm.
love Once Upon a Deadpool.
Mm-hmm.
But these kinds of films, for me, are great reminders of how films can change your life,
Mm-hmm.
um, because they remind you of things that are real, that are finite. Like you don't have, like this is going to pass this time, this opportunity, these windows pass.
Yeah.
And I think they're important. And it's one of those, yeah, it's one, to me, it's an example of one of those films that if you let it and you watch it, it could actually change your life.
Yeah. Yeah. It
It's
takes
great.
you. They're going on a journey, but it's taking you, the viewer, with them.
Yes.
And like you said with that black and white, like you don't have a choice. You're on that ride with them,
Hmm.
and you're watching them uh try to learn about each other, maybe kind of hash out some things that they've never talked about before, learn things that they've never known before,
Yeah.
surprises. There's all kinds of things that go on that we can't talk about that would
Right.
just it's a very interesting trip.
I felt
It,
like the whole time I had this sense of they don't want to be who they are, and they
mhm.
don't want to be where they are. They don't want to be with the people. There was this, and I think all of us can relate to that too sometimes. Like we
Mhm.
all are thinking, like, if only I was this, if only I had this, if only I had their circumstances.
Right.
And this movie feels like it could be you could resign yourself to living in that your entire life and just
Right.
whatever, coast.
Right.
Or the kind of what you said, you could dig a little bit deeper, you could discover more.
Mhm.
And I think by the end of the film, you see it's really hopeful
Yeah.
and it's beautiful. But someone, no one puts themselves out there in this film, I feel like,
Right.
until the end. There's this like bit of an olive branch handed like this,
Yes.
hey. And yeah, so you're right, it is beautiful, and there's opportunity for it to change, for things to be different.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, I think it takes us into like what we talked about, like internal struggles for the characters and family struggles that
Yeah.
that we were going to touch on. Like when you talk about like I so connected with the situation that David found himself in, the younger son, Will Fort's character. Is it Fort or Forte? Forte.
Forte, yeah, well, Forte.
Forte. I so understood where he was at because he was kind of the one. He didn't have the real job. He didn't have the real relationship or kids or anything like that. So the responsibility of dealing with the phone calls of, your father's walking down the highway again and the police brought him home again and he thinks he won $1 million. And no matter what he was doing, he was like, all right. And he goes over and he's the one who has to referee between the mother and the father and calm everyone down. And you could see on his face how drained he was.
Yeah.
And like you said, it was a character that didn't want to be maybe where they were, but they didn't have enough, I guess, of an excuse in their own life not to answer the call that was put upon them.
Right, you're right.
It was kind of like they were seen as the one who, well, he's not doing anything else, so let's call him.
Yeah.
And there were many, many times that I found myself in that situation.
Wow.
So I know how it can feel, but yet to ignore that call feels even worse
Sure.
because as much as there were times when I wouldn't want to go, I would go because I'm thinking to myself, if I don't go, no one's going to go
Yeah.
because they won't,
Right.
because they're busy or they're with their kids or they're at work or they're 10 hours away and what's going to happen.
Hmm.
And you could see that that was weighing on him, and he was very much the peacekeeper.
Yes, he was.
He was very much in that peacekeeper role. With that, even when they go, when they get to what is it, Hastings? Is that where they go?
Yeah.
Hastings?
Hmm.
Hastings. When they get to Hastings, where the father's family is,
Yeah.
then he's doing it with everybody. And the brother just kind of shows up and has
Yeah.
lunch and off he goes.
Hmm.
Here we go, bye. But yeah, I mean, I could feel what he was feeling,
Yeah.
and he desperately wanted answers, and he
Yes.
just wasn't quite sure how to get them.
Hmm. And what you're saying actually reminds me of what you said earlier of where the child starts to be the one to take care of the parent. And you said no
Yep.
one will be there.
Yep.
That's kind of like when we're babies. If the parent doesn't do it, like they're the only one to do it. Like it's their job. They have to. And
Yeah.
you do kind of feel that way. And as a parent, when you have, or I have a little one, everything does go to the wayside. Like my job is impacted by it. All my
Yep.
relationships are, my marriage is impacted by it.
Yep.
Everything is. And
Yep.
you see Will Forte's character, his relationship is impacted.
Yep.
Him trying to work and just have his job is impacted.
Yep.
Everything in his life is impacted by the need to take care of
Yep.
family.
Yep.
And he loves them. He genuinely does, but he
Yep.
also, he doesn't kind of want to be there. He feels stuck,
Yep.
but he loves them.
Yes. And
It's a
he does
lot.
it. He
He
does it.
does.
Yeah.
He does.
And it's just his face, like, I mean, I don't know how long he practiced that face. It was just a face of he was a drained man.
He was.
He was drained. He was emotionally drained, and he did such a great job of holding that.
Yeah.
And he held you there with him.
Yeah.
Even when he was dealing, like we talked about the cousins, when he was dealing with he had to listen to these jokes over and over, and it got so old, and he just,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. What's your car? 4-cylinder. Yeah.
It was so funny. It was so dry,
He was.
but it was so funny.
Yeah, and it was so well done.
Yeah.
And and another character I dealt with, or I connected with, was Kate, the mother, played by June Squibb. She is my maternal grandmother.
Oh, really?
My maternal grandmother, God rest her soul, she's long passed. She was exactly to a T, with the foul mouth, with the
Yeah.
never a nice thing to say about anyone.
Yeah.
She was wicked, wicked hard on my mother's stepfather.
Okay.
She used to call him old dirty bastard every time he came in the house.
No way.
And he would just come in and he'd crack open a Rheingold and he'd sit back and he'd drink it. And she's like, "That's right, you old dirty bastard. You drink that beer."
Really?
But if anything happened to him, she was devastated.
Oh, wow.
Like when he had heart issues, she was devastated. She was the first one there. She would sit with him all night. She would hold his hand,
Wow.
but brutal to him day to day, and brutal to everybody. She was the one, if she was mad at someone, you knew, because you would go into the house and there would be a picture and the
Uh-huh.
head would be cut out.
Really?
That was my grandmother, my maternal grandmother.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times people's heads were removed and then pasted back in. So I
I want to
couldn't
do that now.
oh yeah, it's great. Good therapy. Just start cutting heads out of
Yeah.
pictures. And then you just pop them back in when they're in good
That's
graces.
hilarious.
But so many things she did, I was like, yeah, my grandmother would have done that. Same thing.
Hmm.
So I really did. I enjoyed that because
Where do you think that comes from? Because as you learn more about the dad
yeah.
and his inability to connect, so she must have
Hmm.
felt alone their whole marriage.
Hmm.
And the more you learn about, and then she has two boys. So yeah, I wonder where that comes from for that character or for that kind of personality type. If that's a protecting, I don't know where that comes from, but it was wild to watch.
I think that a lot of what was going on with the father with the distancing, the mother with the acting out, the lashing out, the wall up, but more like a verbal wall, but it kept everybody
Yeah.
away. Like anytime anybody would get close to her, she'd say something so off-putting that everybody'd be like, "All right, just stop." I
Yeah.
think a lot of it had to do with the underlying issue of the alcoholic family.
You sure?
It was definitely an alcoholic family. Like they were functionally dysfunctional.
Right.
So I think a lot of that is a byproduct of a family caught in that. And I don't think that that was very uncommon for people from that generation.
Sure.
Like my grandmother came from her father was a tugboat captain, and he wouldn't even come home before he stopped at the pub for a few hours.
Right.
And so that was all she ever knew, was the father who would come home after the evening at the pub. And her parents had that dynamic.
Right.
So it was a learned behavior. Now we don't get that much backstory on these characters, but it did feel familiar as a lot of defense mechanisms.
Yeah.
When you know that you can't connect, you don't want anyone to get close to you either, because if they don't get close to you, they can't hurt you
Sure.
any more than they already have.
Yeah.
And
And you
I
do.
think
Oh, sorry. No, go
no,
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say I think you're right because the you learn as you go through the film how much trauma the dad has experienced.
Right.
Like he's medicating himself
Right.
because you learn about the war. You learn about
Right.
he. This is spoiler stuff, folks. You can if you stayed with it
Yeah,
that he
countdown.
lost his brother, that he
Yeah.
lost in bed with him, that he
Yeah.
died. And again, you're
Mhm.
right. The generational thing of like probably this generation, if your temperature is this, you go to the hospital.
Right.
But so he's lost someone. He's gone to the war, so he probably saw friends lost there.
Mhm.
And then you learn that he's been walked over by everybody, like
Mhm.
family and friends, his whole life. And so he's medicating himself for sure from a lot of trauma.
Yeah, and that there was a reason why he had a visceral reaction to being taken back to his hometown.
Right.
He
Yes.
did not wanna go, that was not in the plan.
Yeah.
That was not in the plan when they went out on this road trip. He wanted to go to Lincoln and he wanted to come home.
Yeah.
He wanted to go cash in his winnings, and he wanted to come home.
It's
He
$1,000,000.
had no and he gets dragged on this family reunion that he didn't want.
Yeah.
He didn't wanna see his hometown.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of people like that. I think that's a very normal response for people who are coming out of trauma or who have experienced trauma, various kinds of trauma.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we see with his it's such a gut reaction. He's I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
And you see his face. Did you notice his face when they were on the highway and he saw the sign with the town name? You could just see his face drop.
Yeah.
Like just like all the anything that was left in him dropped out,
Right.
because he knew what was there,
Yeah.
and he knew there was nothing for him there.
Yeah. He left for a reason.
Yeah, except maybe his compressor. Maybe his compressor. When if you watch the movie, you'll know about the
Yes.
compressor. So we kind of hit on the family struggles, the internal struggles. Do you want to talk about any other characters? Anything else that stood out to you with the characters or struggles, or did we exhaust that? Or
Uh, yeah, I think the only other thing, and I don't know if we, are we going to chat the ending at all?
um, we can. Yeah, I mean, I think we were just going to say. I think we touched on this. Did you feel like what we were seeing was an authentic? Like, did you feel there was authenticity to the characters, or did you feel that they were just fabricated wild characters in someone's head? Because I found them to be very authentic.
Very real. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
very real.
agree.
Yeah, like you could definitely see this family, you know, as they were presented to us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think the ending, the final scene,
Mhm.
I think was so beautiful. The first time
Mhm.
saw it, I thought it was beautiful, and then the second time saw it, I saw even more of what he did, and what he
Mhm.
did is enormous. And at first, I thought the first time through, I thought, "Oh, that's sweet, that's cute,"
Mhm.
and then the second time through, it was far deeper for me. What the son did,
Mhm.
that the son reached into the past and he tried to bring healing into the. So if you haven't watched this, you might want to stop here or come back
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
But
Stop here.
But I wanted to chat with you about the end, could see your thoughts on it. For me, that compressor represented, when he bought him the new compressor,
Mhm.
it represented him reaching into the past,
Mhm.
trying to heal some of the past for his dad.
Mhm.
Buying him the truck was
Mhm.
trying to fulfill some dreams. So it was about the future.
Mhm.
And then getting on the floor and letting his dad drive through the middle of town in that truck was, for me, the son giving his dad the gift of dignity.
Yes.
You have
Yes.
no dignity,
Yes.
and I want to give you that gift if it's for a
Yes.
fleeting moment. So the son in that one scene reaches into the past to bring healing, reaches into the future to bring healing, and then in the moment brings dignity and healing to his dad.
Yeah.
And it's a silly scene as he sits on the floor and the
Yeah.
dad asks him to scooch down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the dad knows that this is, I get to have dignity for a moment.
Right.
And it was just a really powerful, beautiful closer.
Yeah, it really was. And because as the viewer, this could be one of the very last opportunities
Wow. Yeah.
he has to have that dignity
Yeah.
and to reclaim parts of himself that he felt were gone forever.
Yeah.
And his son gave him that gift.
Yeah.
And his son was the only one who could give him that gift.
Yeah.
It needed to come, it needed to be handed over,
Yeah.
and it was a beautiful, perfect ending.
And then it finished with, like, we talked about the cinematography, the black and white, to
Yeah.
see them drive off into that scenery and that
Yep.
music, the score to come back,
Yep.
the scenery as it's been. It was great. It was just, and you're right. It only could have been the son. The wife would
Mhm.
never have done it. She loves
No.
him, but she was never going to do it. The
Yeah.
older brother was too distant.
Yeah.
But the younger son and you still feel for him. Like, that cost him. Like, it cost him financially. It
Yeah.
cost him pride. It cost him
Yeah.
everything to give that gift to his dad.
Yeah.
And he did it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. Unconditional love.
Yeah. It was really beautiful.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is that's probably something the son hasn't experienced in his life.
Yeah. You're right.
Unconditional love, but somewhere he learned it because he found it within himself to give it,
Yeah.
and you just hope for him somewhere down the road someone can love him that much and be able
Yeah.
to show it. Be
Yes.
able to show it because
Yeah.
sometimes people love us in the best way that they can.
Yep.
It just may not be the way we want, but
Right.
it doesn't mean they don't love us. It just means that they have limitations, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But everybody deserves to be loved the way they need to be loved.
Yeah.
And you just hope for him that maybe he'll find a partner that appreciates him or
Yeah.
loves him unconditionally or makes him feel special,
Yes.
even if he's selling Bose speakers for the rest of his life in Best Buy or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, everything about this movie from beginning to end just it grabbed me and it took me in and I love it. And I think it's a perfect choice for our jumping off point
Yeah.
of movies we love. And I don't know if you have anything else. Oh, I know what we wanted to ask about. Maybe who do you think the target audience for this is? You think it's us? Obviously, it's us. You and I. Other than you and
Yeah.
I,
Us.
us.
Um, I think it's I think it's for anybody, if you've navigated, and we all have, we've all experienced family struggle. We've
Mm-hmm.
all experienced, and if you haven't had it in your family, maybe you've seen it in family, people's
Mm-hmm.
lives. So we've all experienced it, and so I think it's a great film for people who want to maybe walk through, maybe even gain some understanding of how to navigate family history, family struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if you don't understand why your circumstances are the way they are, why is my mom and dad this way?
Mm-hmm.
Why are my relationships with my siblings this way?
Mm-hmm.
I think this film did a great job of saying it's more than just, like, even my lifetime. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I've been alive for 43 years. How my parents are extends beyond the 43 years of my life.
Yes.
And for me to understand how they've raised me or loved me or not shown love or affection
Mm-hmm.
is all impacted by what happened before the 43 years. And this
Mm-hmm.
film did a great job of saying, kind of like teaching you, if you want to understand your family better, you're going to have to go back before you.
Yes.
And if you can, if they're willing to, the dad was like, he learned stuff from his dad's former girlfriend, or the girl who wanted to be his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
He learned stuff from the guys he did business with. He didn't really learn it a lot from his dad. He
Right.
learned a lot of stuff by mistake. So you might have to dig a little bit to find out, why is mom and dad the way they are, and why did life turn out this way? And
Right.
again, I think for me, what I felt convicted over, it helps you even have grace.
Mm-hmm.
It for him, that dad, probably because of the trauma he experienced, did not have the tools or the capacity to be an overly affectionate, warm, cuddly
Right.
dad that Will Forte was longing for.
Right.
I don't think he knew how to do that.
No.
And I think Will, maybe in learning about his dad, it took him to learn about his dad for him to even do that final act of the
Mm-hmm.
compressor
Mm-hmm.
truck.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if he'd have done it if he hadn't learned all those things about his dad.
Probably
I don't
not.
know. I don't
Mm.
know. So it was good. If you want to learn about your family dynamics, how to navigate them, I think this is a great film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that I think when we're talking about maybe like the age demographics target audience, I think it's a wonderful film for even like a film student.
Sure.
Film students who want to learn how to work with the medium, like how color, black and white, lack of color affects
Hmm.
how someone sees a film, how score affects someone sees a film, cinematography, framing of shots. I think it's a great film to study
Yeah.
if you're interested in film study. So because I know a lot of young people, if it's not, a lot of young people do like the John Wick, and I don't know at 19 or 20 if that would have been a film that would have interested me as much as it does now.
Yeah, I agree.
Because for me it really does hit home, because it's where I'm at in my life. Um, but like like I said, if someone's a film student, I think it's a wonderful film to study. But also, like you said, if you're anyone who wants to understand family dynamics that maybe aren't perfect,
Yeah.
and understand why people are the way they are, and that we all struggle, and that we're all just doing the best that we can,
Yeah.
and that we are just a product of our past,
Yeah.
and that we just all we can do is hope to do better in the future, and maybe understand the best that we can. And like I said before, people may not give us something the way we want it, but they're giving it to us the best way they know how,
Right.
even if it isn't perfect.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's not there somewhere. You just, like you said, you might have to dig a little deeper.
Hmm.
But I think it is a beautiful, beautiful film from beginning to end, and I highly recommend anyone, if you haven't seen Nebraska, please, please see it, and definitely come back and let us know what your thoughts are, and if you think that if we're crazy, or if we hit the marks. They'll be like, those two are so
Yeah.
screwed up. But you're not telling us anything we don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, we don't deny anything. So but John, I want to thank you so much. This was so much. It's always fun to
This was
talk to
fun.
you, and I'm excited to see what our next film is going to be. If there's anything you guys would like to see us talk about, drop it in the
Yeah.
comments. John, I'm going to put all of your information down in the description, so everybody knows where they can reach you. Please go over and subscribe to John. We're pushing him to 1,000, whether he likes it or not, and then some. And anything else you want to add before we close this out?
This was super fun. I've been looking forward to this. I think we were joking about it. I feel like we've done a ton of videos together because we talk all the time,
All
but we
right.
haven't. And so it's been a while since we've done a video together. And
Yeah.
I'm legitimately so excited to do this, just to chat and hang out with you. So this was
Yeah.
a ton of fun. So I'm looking forward to doing more of these in this series.
I think you're just relieved that we didn't pick the Devil's Rejects yet.
We'll wait till October.
Yeah, we're gonna do the Devil's Rejects and some Best of Rob Zombie for
Yeah.
Halloween. But I guess we're gonna call it a day, and we're gonna thank you guys for joining us and
Yeah.
hanging out. We really hope you enjoyed it, and we appreciate each and every one of you. So please come back and see us again. And for today, that's a wrap.